Today is 15th August, so let's take a short trip back to the Independence Day celebrations we had in school. With the flag hoisting, sweets distribution, and patriotic songs being played aloud. There are students dressed as Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, Bal Gangadhar Tilak. Seldom there would be a Sherwani clad Zakir Hussain or Maulana Muhammad Ali Jauhar, and within them a sole woman representative, Rani Lakshmi Bai. The struggle for Indian independence was no small feat. While the leaders we have been hearing about since childhood did play a big part in it, there were others who have been neglected, or rather they never made it to our history textbooks. 78 years after independence, much is forgotten and often purposefully overlooked about the contribution of Muslim women in the freedom struggle of India. There is no dearth of books recounting the heroic tales of men charging against the British colonizers. But only a handful of them talk about the participation of women, and even fewer mention anything about Muslim women. So much so that there exist only 2 accomplished records of Muslim women and their contribution to the freedom struggle. This video is an ode to these women whose sacrifice, courage, and bravery has been lost in the pages of history and time. Imagine this, it's 1857. The first war of independence is breaking out, and British forces are attacking the liberated town of Thana Bhawan in Muzaffarnagar. But they are shocked to see women take an active part in the armed struggle. Amongst them, the most prominent was Asghari Begum. Born in 1811, she was the mother of revolutionary leader Qazi Abdul Rahim Khan. The mother and son duo were at the forefront of the rebellion of Thana Bhawan, rallying local villagers and peasants to take up arms against the British forces. In October of 1857, the rebellion was quelled. Asghari Begum was captured and burnt alive to instill fear amongst the revolutionaries, especially the women. About 500 kilometers from Thana Bhawan, Begum Hazrat Mahal had liberated the city of Lucknow. Popularly known as Begum of Awadh, she was the second wife of Wajid Ali Shah, the Nawab of Awadh. In 1856, when the last of the Nawabs were exiled to Bengal, she stayed back in Lucknow with her son, Birjis Qadir, and took power alongside him as the Queen Regent. William Howard Russell, an Irish news reporter with the Times, once wrote about her. The sepoys never came on as boldly as the zamindari levies and nujibs. This Begum exhibits great energy and ability. She has excited all the Awadh. For the 6 months that she held power in Awadh, Hazrat Mahal recruited top revolutionary leaders and sent proclamations to zamindars, talukdars, and the people at large to unite under one banner to defeat the British. She toured the region, held meetings with soldiers, and even appeared on the battlefield mounted on an elephant. She issued 5 lakhs rupees to fortify the city of Lucknow against the troops of Sir Colin Campbell. The English listed her as the prime enemy in Awadh. Eventually, she left the fort of Baundi and escaped to Nepal with a handful of soldiers, where she was given refuge by King Jang Bahadur Rana. After the rebellion was quelled, British forces tried to make leaders and rebels surrender with offers of pension and royal clemency. But Begum, under the seal of her son, Birjis Qadir, sent proclamations to the people of Awadh. She refused to surrender and wrote, "This appears very astonishing, for it is the unvarying custom of the English never to forgive a fault." Begum Hazrat Mahal tried to return to India in 1877 but was denied permission. She passed away in 1879 and was buried in a land foreign to her. The revolt of 1857 did not last long, but it intimidated the British Empire to take over the control of India from the East India Company. The British government held Indian Muslims responsible for the revolt. Muslims had revolted in large numbers under the leadership of Bahadur Shah Zafar to re-establish the Mughal Empire, and hence they were subjected to severe forms of oppression by the British Raj. Muslim leaders were hanged or sentenced to prison, their properties were confiscated, and they were denied important jobs under the crown. Amidst the chaos and fear cast by the British was another Muslim women revolutionary. Born in Amroha, Abdi Banu Begum was the mother of Muhammad Ali Jauhar and Shaukat Ali. She was one of the first Muslim women to take part in politics and was called Bi Amma by Mahatma Gandhi. She met Gandhi in 1917 during a demonstration for the release of her sons from prison. Gandhi himself also sought her support in persuading women to join the freedom movement. In the same year, she addressed a session of the Indian National Congress and the All India Muslim League in Calcutta, where she emphasized the need to unite all faiths in order to liberate India. She was an active member of the Khilafat Committee and referred to Hindus and Muslims as two eyes of India. In her speech during the Khilafat Conference of 1921, she advocated for unity amongst Muslims and urged them to join hands with Hindus for the broader struggle of India's independence. When her sons and Gandhi were arrested by the British forces in September 1921, Bi Amma took the onus of promoting the non-cooperation movement on herself. She travelled to Rawalpindi, Gujranwala, Kasur and other provinces in Punjab, urging women to use khadi and boycott foreign goods. During the non-cooperation movement, she travelled to Patna, Bhagalpur, Darbhanga and other provinces in Bihar and collected 60,000 rupees for the Khilafat Committee in 1922. She addressed women-only gatherings along with Basant Devi, Sarla Devi, Begum Hazrat Mohani and Sarojini Naidu and encouraged them to participate and donate to the Tilak Fund set up by Bal Gangadhar Tilak for the freedom movement. Talking about his mother, Muhammad Ali Johar said, "Suffice it to say that, although she was practically illiterate, I have in all experience of men of all sorts of types come across none that I could call wiser, and certainly that was more truly godly and spiritual than our mother." Women were not only part of the freedom struggle, they were equally involved in what came after it. Born in a family of freedom fighters, Anis Kidwai was an active participant of Indian national movement. Her father, Sheikh Vilayat Ali, and her husband, Shafi Ahmad Kidwai, were both freedom fighters and close friends with the Nehru family. Kidwai had also served as the secretary of the Women's Congress Committee from 1921 to 1923. During the riots that engulfed India post-partition, her husband was killed in a communal attack in Dehradun. He was the local administrator in Mussoorie and had been receiving threats to leave the city for some time. She became deeply disturbed by this incident as her husband opposed the partition and preached communal harmony between Hindu and Muslims. Anis realized he was not alone in this. She left her home for Delhi and collaborated with women leaders like Mridula Sarabhai and Subhadra Joshi to help thousands of women like her who were bearing the brunt of partition. She helped in the rehabilitation of refugees who fled Pakistan in Delhi and built a home in Lucknow for the kidnapped and lost women and children. In her award-winning book Azadi Ki Chhaaw Mein, published in 1974, she wrote about her experience of working with refugees and victims of violence, the failure of administration and Gandhi's efforts to combat the communal violence in India post-partition. When we talk about partition, we cannot possibly forget the contribution and dedication of Bibi Amtus Salam, a devoted disciple and later recognized as Mahatma Gandhi's adopted daughter. Amtus Salam gave her life to the rehabilitation of refugees. Born in a zamindar family of Patiala in Punjab, she attended the meetings of Indian National Movement along with her brother Muhammad Abdul Rashid Khan, where she was persuaded by Gandhi's message for non-violence. In 1931, she participated in the Khadi movement and became a part of Gandhi's Sevagram Ashram for the downtrodden. In 1932, she was arrested along with the other women of the Indian National Movement and jailed by the British forces. When her brothers and rest of the family left for Pakistan during the partition in 1947, Amtus refused to leave India and instead followed Gandhi to the riot-torn areas of Sindh and Bengal and fasted with him for 20 days to restore peace in Noakhali. During 1947 to 1948, she worked with Mrs. Lajjavati Huja, a prominent leader of All Indian Women's Congress, to evacuate thousands of Hindu and Muslim women who were kidnapped during the partition. She made several trips to Pakistan to assist in the evacuation of refugees and rehabilitate them in their respective homes in India and Pakistan. When Amtus was disturbed by violence between Hindus and Muslims during partition, Gandhi wrote to her, "You are the moving spirit behind whatever peace has been achieved in Noakhali. It was and still is your most significant work. Only you can sustain it. Wherever you stand in the capacity of my daughter, do you not? Asghari Begum, Anis Kidwai, Bibi Amtus Salam, Begum Hazrat Mahal and Abdi Bano Begum are only a few names about whom some history is available, in tiny paragraphs and footnotes, sparsely spread across books on India's freedom history. Many Muslim women gave their lives in the revolt of 1857, but there are barely any records of them. They are only quoted as a passing reference. Like Habiba and Rahimi, two other ordinary civilians yet extraordinary revolutionaries who were hanged for rallying women in towns of Muzaffarnagar to take up arms against the British. Or Zohra Ansari, who taught Urdu to Gandhi and sold her house to fund the Congress party. Or Nishatun Nisa Mohani, who opened the first Khadi garment store, Aligarh Khilafat store, in 1920 to fund the Young India magazine. There are many others like Saida Khurshid, Aruna Asif Ali, Jamalun Nisa, Kulsum Sayani, Sayyid Fakrul Hajia Hassan, Hajra Bibi Ismail, whose names and contributions have been lost amongst the echo of their stereotypes. It's not surprising that these accounts are missing. History is often shaped by those who write it, and women's contributions are frequently overlooked because they haven't always been the ones telling the story. Muslim women even more so. The struggles and achievements of these have been largely ignored in the decades after India's independence. Their stories barely made it into history textbooks, which raises an important question. Is it because they advocated for crossing beyond lines of religion and unite for a common cause?